The massive space station hung in the darkness between stars like a metal city. Inside its central chamber, hundreds of alien beings gathered around a circular table that glowed with blue light. This was the Galactic Council, the most powerful organization in known space. Today they were making a decision that would change everything. Admiral Vextar stood at the center of the room. His 6 arms moved quickly as he operated the holographic display. The creature looked like a giant spider crossed with an octopus, but his voice was clear and commanding. 3 cycles ago, his scouts had found something interesting in a distant corner of the galaxy. "Council members," Vextar announced, "we have discovered a new world. The locals call it Earth. It sits in a perfect location for our next expansion." The hologram showed a blue and green planet spinning slowly in space. It looked peaceful and beautiful. Around the table, alien heads turned to look. Some had multiple eyes, others had tentacles instead of faces. All of them were interested. Council member Kilnoth, a tall creature with purple skin and 4 legs, raised one of his many hands. "What about the native species, Admiral? Are they a threat?" Vextar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Threat? These humans are barely more advanced than animals. Look at this." The hologram changed to show Earth's cities. The aliens saw buildings made of metal and glass, vehicles moving on primitive roads, and flying machines that burned chemical fuel. To beings who could travel between stars, it all looked very basic. "They have just started to leave their planet," Vextar continued. "Their fastest ships move slower than our cargo vessels. Their weapons are crude explosives and simple energy beams. They cannot even communicate faster than light." Another council member, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Zilmoth, pulsed with different colors as it spoke. "What is their population?" 8 billion, Vextar replied, "mostly concentrated in large settlements. They will make excellent workers once we integrate them into the Empire." The word integrate was a polite way of saying enslave. The Galactic Council had done this to hundreds of worlds. They would arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and then put the local population to work mining resources and building ships for the Empire. What none of them knew was that at that very moment, on Earth, a man named Park Tae-ho was working late in his laboratory beneath the city of Seoul. The basement lab looked ordinary enough: computers, cables, and electronic equipment everywhere. But Tae-ho was not ordinary. He was one of the smartest humans who had ever lived. 3 years ago, Tae-ho had been working on quantum communication theory when something impossible happened. A signal had reached Earth from deep space, not radio waves or any normal transmission. This was a quantum entanglement signal, something that most Earth scientists thought was impossible over long distances. Tae-ho had traced the signal to its source and found something that changed his life forever. The signal came from a small alien probe that had crashed in the mountains of Nepal. When the probe was recovered and brought to his lab, Tae-ho discovered technology that was centuries ahead of anything on Earth. Working with his colleagues Kim Min-soo and Lee Hee-jin, Tae-ho had spent 3 years reverse engineering the alien technology. They had learned how to create quantum entanglement networks that could send messages instantly across any distance. They had figured out how alien computers worked and how to hack into their systems. Most importantly, they had learned that Earth was being watched. Tonight, as the Galactic Council voted to invade Earth, Tae-ho sat at his computer monitoring deep space. His quantum receivers could detect alien communications from thousands of light years away. For the past week, he had been watching a massive fleet gathering at the edge of known space. "Min-soo," he called to his colleague, "the signals are getting stronger. I think they're getting ready to move." Kim Min-soo looked up from his workstation. He was younger than Tae-ho, but equally brilliant. "How many ships?" "The computer estimates 50,000. Tae-ho replied quietly. "Maybe more." Lee Hee-jin, the 3rd member of their team, stopped what she was doing. She was the team's expert on alien computer systems. 50,000? That's not an exploration fleet. That's an invasion force. Tae-ho nodded grimly. He had been expecting this day for 3 years. The alien probe had contained detailed information about the Galactic Council and their expansion methods. Earth had always been on their list of targets. But Earth was not as helpless as it appeared. The quantum communication network that Tae-ho had built was just the beginning. Over the past 3 years, a secret project had been growing beneath the notice of most of humanity. World leaders knew. Military commanders knew. Scientists and engineers in hidden facilities around the world knew. But the general population had no idea what was being prepared. Captain Yang So-ra sat in her command center 2 kilometers beneath the mountains of Colorado. Her official title was Deep Space Monitoring Specialist, but her real job was much more important. She was the commander of Earth's early warning system, a network of sensors and quantum receivers that could detect alien activity anywhere in the local galaxy. Captain, her operator Choi Hyun-woo called out, "We're getting massive quantum signatures from the Vanguard sector. The patterns match Admiral Vexitar's fleet." Yang So-ra had studied alien military tactics for 3 years. She knew the names of their commanders, their ship designs, and their battle strategies. The aliens thought they were invisible as they prepared their attack, but Earth had been watching them as carefully as they had been watching Earth. "Signal strength?" she asked. "Increasing rapidly," replied Nam Ji-won from another console. "I estimate they'll be in our solar system within 72 hours. Yang So-ra activated her quantum communicator. The message would reach every secret facility on Earth, the moon, and the hidden bases throughout the solar system instantly. "Control to all stations. Execute alert condition red. Operation Prometheus is now active." Back in the Galactic Council chamber, the vote was unanimous. 50,000 ships would depart immediately for Earth. The humans would be given one chance to surrender. If they refused, the planet would be bombarded until resistance ended. Admiral Vexitar began issuing orders to his fleet commanders. The operation would be simple: jump to the edge of the Earth system, demand surrender, and when the primitives refused, demonstrate superior firepower until they submitted. Based on previous invasions, the entire process should take less than 6 hours. "What should we do about their military forces?" asked Captain Morduk, one of Vexitar's subordinates. "What military forces?" Vexitar replied with amusement. "They have a few hundred primitive flying machines and some ground vehicles with projectile weapons. Our shields can stop anything they possess." The other alien commanders made similar sounds of amusement. In their experience, primitive species always had primitive weapons. Energy shields that could stop nuclear explosions would have no trouble with anything humans could produce. As the council meeting ended and the invasion fleet prepared to depart, none of the aliens noticed something important happening in their own computer systems. 3 years of study had taught Earth's hackers exactly how alien technology worked. Even now, hidden programs were quietly copying the fleet's tactical data and sending it back to Earth through quantum channels. Lee Hyojin smiled as the stolen data appeared on her screens. Ship positions, weapon capabilities, shield frequencies, communication codes. Everything Earth needed to know about the incoming invasion force. "Taeho," she called out. "We have complete intelligence on their fleet composition." "I'm sending it to command now." Park Taeho leaned back in his chair. 3 years of preparation were about to be tested. The aliens thought they were attacking a primitive world defended by crude weapons and slow communications. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Earth looked helpless from space. Its cities glowed with simple electric lights. Its few space stations appeared to be basic research facilities. Its orbital satellites looked like primitive communication and weather monitoring devices. But appearances could be deceiving. And humanity had learned how to deceive very, very well. The war was about to begin, and only one side knew what was really happening. Deep beneath the Swiss Alps, in a facility that did not exist on any public map, Dr. Shin Woo-jin stood before the largest computer screen ever built. The screen stretched across an entire wall and showed a 3-dimensional map of the solar system. Thousands of small dots moved slowly through space, each one representing something the outside world knew nothing about. President Lim Da-yoon walked into the command center, her heels clicking on the metal floor. She looked tired. For 3 years, she had been living a double life. To the public, she was the leader of a peaceful nation. In reality, she was the commander-in-chief of the most secret military project in human history. "How much time do we have?" she asked Dr. Shin. 68 hours until they reach the outer planets," he replied. 72 until they get to Earth orbit. General Ko Jin-suk stepped forward from his position at a tactical display. He was a big man with gray hair and serious eyes. "Ma'am, all units are reporting ready. We can begin final preparations on your order." President Lim nodded. "Do it. Activate everything." Dr. Shin pressed a series of buttons on his control panel. Across the solar system, things that had been sleeping for years began to wake up. On the surface, nothing seemed to change. People went to work, children went to school, and life continued normally. But far below the surface, in tunnels and chambers that stretched for hundreds of kilometers, an enormous machine began to move. The machine had taken 3 years to build. It started when the first alien probe was found, and Earth realized it was not alone in the universe. Every major government had contributed resources. The best scientists, engineers, and military experts from every nation had worked together on a single goal, preparing for this day. Bai Subin stood in her control room high above the Earth's atmosphere. Officially, she was the director of the International Space Station's communication system. In reality, she commanded 2,000 weapons platforms hidden throughout Earth's orbital space. "Control, this is Orbital Command," she spoke into her communicator. "Project Thunderbolt is online. All platforms report ready status." The platforms looked like ordinary satellites to anyone watching from the ground or space. They had been launched over 3 years using normal rockets and normal procedures. The only difference was what was inside them. Instead of communication equipment or scientific instruments, each satellite contained weapons that could destroy a city. Meanwhile, on the far side of the moon, Yun Kitai was making final adjustments to humanity's greatest secret. The moon base looked like a simple research facility from the outside. It had been built openly, with full media coverage, as an international scientific project to study lunar geology. What the media did not know was that the geological research had hollowed out a huge section of the moon's interior. Inside that hollow space, human engineers had built something that would have been impossible on Earth. It was too big, too powerful, and too dangerous to construct on a planet with an atmosphere and a population. "Han Yuri," Yoon called to his chief engineer, "are the quantum transmitters ready?" Han Yuri looked up from her workstation. She was a small woman with quick hands and a brilliant mind. "All quantum nodes are synchronized. We can transmit objects up to 2 kilometers in size anywhere within the solar system." This was humanity's secret weapon, instant transportation using quantum mechanics. The alien probe had contained the basic principles, but human scientists had improved the technology far beyond what the aliens themselves possessed. Large objects, including entire military units, could now be moved instantly from one location to another. Back on Earth, No Jae-sung sat in his underground office reviewing the final battle plans. As Earth's chief military strategist, he had spent 3 years studying every detail of alien warfare. He knew their tactics, their weapons, and most importantly, their weaknesses. "All defensive positions are manned," he reported to General Ko. "The subway tunnels in every major city have been converted to military transport systems. We can move 1 million soldiers anywhere on the planet in less than 10 minutes. What looked like public transportation to the citizens above was actually the most sophisticated military logistics network ever created. The subway cars were armored personnel carriers. The train stations were weapon storage facilities. The repair tunnels were command centers and barracks. In orbit around Mars, Cha Dong-hyun commanded a facility that the public thought was a terraforming research station. In reality, it was the control center for the most powerful sensor network in human history. Every piece of space debris larger than a marble was tracked and cataloged. Any ship entering the solar system could be detected weeks before it arrived at Earth. "General Ko," Cha reported through the quantum communication system, "alien fleet has entered our detection range. I confirm 53,000 ships approaching from the Vanguard sector." "Understood," General Ko replied. "Begin detailed analysis of their fleet composition." The sensors did more than just detect the alien ships. They could analyze the energy signatures, identify the ship types, and even estimate crew numbers. By the time the aliens reached Earth, humanity would know everything about their fleet. Moon Ga-young worked at a monitoring station hidden inside an asteroid between Jupiter and Saturn. For 3 years, she had been tracking alien communications and learning their languages. Her team of linguists and code breakers had decoded every alien transmission system. "I'm intercepting their command frequencies," she reported. "The fleet commander is Admiral Vextar. He's planning a standard domination scenario. Orbital demonstration, surrender demand, followed by bombardment if refused." This intelligence was immediately sent to Earth's command centers. Human military leaders knew exactly what the aliens were planning to do, while the aliens knew nothing about what was waiting for them. President Lim walked through the underground command center, checking on each station. At the engineering section, she stopped to speak with Kim Sang-ho, the head of Earth's power systems. "Are we ready to power everything at once?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Kim replied. "The fusion reactors are online. The solar collection grid is fully charged. We can run every system at maximum power for 72 hours without any problems." The power requirements for Earth's secret defenses were enormous. Normal power plants could never provide enough energy. Over 3 years, humanity had built a hidden network of fusion reactors and orbital solar collectors that could generate more electricity than the rest of human civilization used combined. Colonel Ryu. Maijin stood at the main tactical display, watching as thousands of status indicators turned from yellow to green. She was the officer who would give the final attack order when the time came. Her finger would be on the button that would start the most important battle in human history. "All weapon systems report ready," she announced. "Kinetic bombardment platforms are loaded and targeted. Energy weapon networks are charged and synchronized. Stealth attack squadrons are in position." To any alien observer, Earth looked completely defenseless. The planet had a few primitive space stations, some basic satellites, and no visible military presence in space. What they could not see were the thousands of hidden weapons, the millions of soldiers waiting in underground facilities, and the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Dr. Shin looked at the countdown timer on his screen. 65 hours and 37 minutes until contact. He opened a communication channel to every secret facility on Earth, the Moon, and throughout the solar system. "This is command control," he announced. "All stations prepare for Operation Prometheus. In 65 hours we will discover whether 3 years of preparation has been enough." President Lim stood beside him, watching the tactical display. 53,000 alien ships were approaching Earth, expecting to find a primitive world defended by crude weapons and simple technology. They were about to discover that appearances could be very deceiving, and they were about to learn why underestimating humanity was the most dangerous mistake anyone could make. The countdown continued. Earth was ready. The only question now was whether the aliens would be smart enough to leave when given the chance, or whether they would force humanity to show them what 3 years of secret preparation had accomplished. Dr. Shin had a feeling they were about to find out. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion Spear, and felt satisfaction flow through his multiple hearts. Through the viewing screen, he could see the small blue planet that would soon belong to the Galactic Empire. Earth hung in the darkness of space like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. Behind him, 53,000 warships spread across space in perfect formation. It was the largest invasion fleet ever assembled, capable of destroying entire star systems. Against a primitive world like Earth, it was massive overkill, but the Admiral believed in overwhelming force. "Communications Officer Zektar," he commanded, "open a channel to the planet's surface. Let us begin the surrender protocols." The alien communication system activated, sending signals toward Earth on multiple frequencies. Within seconds, they received a response. The main screen flickered and showed what appeared to be a simple office building. Behind a wooden desk sat a human female wearing dark clothing. President Lim Da-yoon looked directly into the camera with calm eyes. She showed no fear, no surprise, and no confusion. She looked like someone who had been expecting this call. "I am Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Hegemony," the alien commander announced. "Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare your population for relocation to work facilities." President Lim listened without interruption. When the Admiral finished speaking, she was quiet for several seconds. Around the bridge, alien officers waited for the expected response: panic, confusion, or desperate attempts to negotiate. Instead, President Lim smiled slightly. "We decline your offer," she said in a voice as calm as if she were discussing the weather. "You have 30 minutes to leave our solar system." The bridge of the Dominion Spear fell completely silent. In 300 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever responded like this. They begged, they pleaded, they offered tribute, or they attacked with hopeless desperation. None of them had ever politely declined and given the invaders a deadline to leave. Admiral Vextar made a sound that his translator interpreted as laughter. "You decline? Do you understand what you are facing? This is a fleet of 53,000 warships. We have weapons that can crack planets. Your entire world could be destroyed in minutes." "Yes," President Lim replied calmly. "We understand exactly what we are facing. Do you?" Before the Admiral could respond, the communication channel closed. President Lim's image disappeared, leaving the aliens staring at an empty screen. "Scan their military installations," Admiral Vextar ordered. "Show me what passes for defenses on this world." The ship's sensors activated, sweeping across Earth's surface and orbital space. The results appeared on tactical displays around the bridge. Earth had a few small space stations, some basic satellites, and no visible weapons platforms in orbit. On the surface, the sensors detected primitive military bases with crude vehicles and simple aircraft. "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Mordick, "I detect no significant military presence. Their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical explosive devices and basic energy beams. Nothing that could threaten our shields?" Admiral Vextar nodded. The human response was clearly desperation. They were hoping to bluff their way out of an impossible situation. It was almost sad. "Very well," he decided. "We will demonstrate our power. Target the large landmass designated as Australia. Select an empty area and fire a warning shot. When they see what our weapons can do, they will surrender quickly." 3 destroyer-class ships moved into position above Earth's southern continent. Their plasma cannons charged with energy that could melt stone and vaporize metal. The weapons fired simultaneously, sending beams of superheated matter toward the Australian desert. On Earth, the attack was detected instantly. In his underground command center, Kim Sang-ho watched the incoming energy beams on his display. "Plasma discharge incoming," he reported calmly. "Activating collection grid." The alien weapon struck the Earth's surface and simply vanished. The energy that should have created a crater several kilometers wide was absorbed by a massive underground network of collectors and converted into electricity. The desert looked exactly the same as before the attack. On the Dominion Spears Bridge, confusion spread among the alien officers. Their sensors showed that the weapons had fired correctly and struck the target. But there was no explosion, no crater, and no damage of any kind. "Technical malfunction," suggested Communications Officer Zektar. "Impossible," replied Tactical Officer Morduck. "All 3 ships fired simultaneously. They cannot all have malfunctioned." Admiral Vexistar stared at the unchanged landscape below. In 300 years of warfare, he had never seen anything like this. "Fire again." Full power this time. The 3 destroyers fired again, this time with enough energy to destroy a small city. Once again, the beams struck the Earth and vanished without effect. The planet's surface remained completely undamaged. At that moment, something unprecedented happened throughout the alien fleet. Every ship's sensors simultaneously detected thousands of new signals from Earth's orbital space. Weapons platforms, communication arrays, and military installations that had not existed seconds before were suddenly everywhere. Dr. Park Tae-ho sat in his laboratory beneath Seoul and pressed a single button on his keyboard. The quantum entanglement network that had been hidden for 3 years activated instantly. Across the solar system, every piece of military equipment that had been disguised, hidden, or powered down came online at exactly the same moment. The aliens' sensors went crazy. What had appeared to be a defenseless planet was suddenly bristling with advanced technology. Energy signatures that exceeded anything in the Galactic Empire's database appeared on every screen. "Admiral," Tactical Officer Morduck called out in panic. "I'm detecting massive weapons platforms throughout their orbital space. Energy readings are off the scale. Sir, some of these signatures are more powerful than our own battleships." Captain Yang Sora stood in her command center beneath the Colorado Mountains and smiled grimly. For 3 years she had been waiting for this moment. "All units, this is command. The aliens have just fired on Earth. Execute Prometheus Protocol. Show them what we really are." The first sign that something was wrong came from the alien fleet's communication systems. Every ship suddenly found itself cut off from the others. The quantum jamming network that Earth had built using captured alien technology was more advanced than anything the Galactic Empire possessed. "Sir," Communications Officer Zektar reported with growing alarm, "I'm losing contact with the fleet. Something is jamming our quantum communication systems." Admiral Vextar felt the first touch of real concern. In 300 years, no primitive species had ever possessed quantum jamming technology. "How is this possible?" His question was answered when the human communication channel reopened. This time, President Lim was not alone. Behind her stood military officers wearing uniforms that looked far more advanced than anything the aliens had expected. "Admiral Vexitar," President Lim said calmly. "You have fired on our planet. This is an act of war. You now have 15 minutes to begin withdrawing from our solar system." "Impossible," Admiral Vextar snarled. "You are a primitive species. You have no advanced technology." President Lim nodded to someone off-screen. "Colonel Ryu, please show the Admiral our primitive technology." Colonel Ryu Mijin's voice came through the communication system clearly. "Admiral, your flagship is currently being targeted by 347 weapons platforms. Each platform is armed with kinetic bombardment systems capable of accelerating projectiles to 15% of light speed. At that velocity, even your shields will not protect you." The tactical displays on the Dominion sphere confirmed her words. Hundreds of targeting beams were now focused on the flagship from weapons that had not existed minutes before. "Furthermore," Colonel Ryu continued, "your fleet is now completely surrounded. We have military installations on every major asteroid, moon, and planetary body in our solar system. Your ships are outnumbered approximately 50 to 1. Admiral Vextar looked at his tactical officer, who nodded grimly. The sensors showed exactly what the human had described. The alien fleet was trapped in the middle of the largest military installation any of them had ever seen. "You have 12 minutes to begin your withdrawal," President Lim announced. "After that, we will consider your presence an ongoing act of war and respond accordingly." The communication channel closed again, leaving the alien bridge in stunned silence. Admiral Vextar had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had faced desperate enemies and overwhelming odds. But he had never encountered anything like this. A species that appeared primitive but possessed technology that surpassed his own. An enemy that had allowed his fleet to enter their territory, then sprung a trap that was impossible to escape. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vextar was beginning to understand that he might have made a terrible mistake. Admiral Vextar stared at the countdown timer on his bridge display. 12 minutes. The humans had given him 12 minutes to begin withdrawing his fleet or face the consequences. In 300 years of military service, no primitive species had ever given him an ultimatum. "Admiral," Tactical Officer Morduk said quietly, "recommend we consider tactical withdrawal. These readings are unlike anything in our databases." "Withdrawal?" Admiral Vextar's voice carried rage and disbelief. "From primitives. Prepare the fleet for full assault. We will show these humans the price of defying the Galactic Empire." The Admiral was about to make the worst decision in galactic history. Dr. Xin Wu-jin stood in the command center beneath the Swiss Alps, watching the countdown on the main display. 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Around him, hundreds of technicians sat at control stations, their hands poised over keyboards and switches. "All stations report ready," General Ko Jin-suk announced. "Prometheus protocol is fully active. We can begin the demonstration whenever you give the order." President Lim Da-un took a deep breath. 3 years of preparation had led to this moment. "When the timer reaches 0, show them what humanity is capable of." The countdown continued. 11:29. 11:28. 11:27. On the bridge of the Dominion Sphere, Admiral Vextar issued his final order as a fleet commander. "All ships prepare to fire. Target their major population centers. We will end this primitive defiance once and for all." Throughout the alien fleet, 53,000 warships powered up their weapon systems, plasma cannons charged with enough energy to burn continents. Kinetic bombardment systems loaded projectiles that could shatter mountains. The largest invasion fleet in galactic history, prepared to destroy Earth. Countdown reached 0. Dr. Shin pressed a single button on his control panel and activated the most devastating 14 minutes in the history of warfare. Quantum transmission network activated. Dr. Park Tae-ho's quantum entanglement system came fully online. In one instant, 500 million human soldiers materialized in predetermined positions throughout the solar system. They appeared on asteroids, space stations, hidden bases, and in the empty space between planets. Each soldier wore advanced combat suits that had been designed using 3 years of reverse-engineered alien technology. Their weapons fired projectiles at velocities that made sound barriers irrelevant. Their armor could withstand direct hits from alien energy weapons. On the bridge of the Dominion Sphere, alarms began screaming as sensors detected the impossible. Hundreds of millions of military contacts appearing simultaneously throughout the solar system. "Sir," Tactical Officer Morduk shouted over the noise. "Massive troop deployment detected. They're everywhere." How is this possible? Admiral Vextar had no answer. Instant transportation of that scale was beyond even Galactic Empire technology. 2:30. Orbital strike. Initiated Captain Yang Sora stood in her command center and spoke into her communicator with calm precision. All orbital platforms commence firing. Target priority: command ships, battleships, carriers. 2,000 weapons platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites revealed their true nature. Each platform fired kinetic projectiles accelerated to 10% of light speed using magnetic rail systems that drew power from hidden fusion reactors. The tungsten rods were each the size of a telephone pole and moving fast enough to punch through a planet. When they struck the alien ships, the impacts released energy equivalent to nuclear explosions. The first wave of kinetic strikes hit the alien fleet before their shields could adjust. 17 battleships and 43 cruisers simply ceased to exist, vaporized by impacts that generated temperatures hotter than the surface of stars. Impossible, Admiral Vextar screamed as his flagship shook from a near miss. No primitive species possesses kinetic weapons of that velocity. Air 415, Solar Storm Protocol Commander Bei Subin activated humanity's most ambitious weapons project. Around the sun, what had appeared to be scientific research stations revealed themselves as massive electromagnetic pulse generators. Solar Storm Protocol activated, she announced. Artificial solar flare in 3, 2, 1. The devices created an electromagnetic pulse so powerful that it looked like the sun itself was attacking the alien fleet. The artificial solar flare disabled the electronics of every alien ship within the inner solar system. Navigation systems failed, weapons went offline, and life support began shutting down. Sir, Communications Officer Zektar called out in panic. All our electronics are failing. The humans have weaponized their star. Admiral Vextar could only watch in horror as half his fleet went dark and began drifting helplessly through space. Stealth attack deployment, Dr. Hanyuri had spent 3 years perfecting phase shift technology using principles found in the alien probe. The result was a fleet of stealth fighters that were completely invisible to any known sensor system. 3,000 stealth fighters materialized within the alien formation. Each fighter carried quantum torpedoes that could destabilize matter at the molecular level. The alien ships found themselves under attack by enemies they could not see, could not track, and could not fight. Explosions erupted throughout the fleet as the invisible fighters struck with precision and devastating effect. We're taking heavy casualties, Tactical Officer Mordick reported. Unknown attackers using weapons that break down our hull material at the atomic level. Admiral Vextar realized that his fleet was being systematically destroyed by technology that should not exist. 45. Lunar Mass Driver Activation General. Kojin Suk had saved the most devastating weapon for last. The moon had been hollowed out and converted into the largest artillery piece ever constructed. Lunar Mass Driver is charged and ready, reported Yoon Ki-tae from the lunar base. Target enemy flagship. The mass driver fired a projectile the size of a city block at 15% of light speed. The projectile was essentially a small artificial meteor, moving fast enough to punch through anything. Admiral Vextar saw the projectile coming on his sensors. It was moving too fast to dodge and too massive to stop. All power to forward shields, he screamed. The projectile struck the Dominion Spear's shields and passed through them as if they were made of paper. It punched completely through the flagship, creating a hole 3 kilometers wide. The massive warship broke apart and began exploding as its power systems failed. Admiral Vextar's last coherent thought was, wondering how a primitive species had built a weapon more powerful than anything in the Galactic Empire. 30. Earth Fleet Deployment. The final surprise came as Admiral Park Min-ho led Earth's hidden fleet into battle. 3,000 ships erupted from the Earth's surface, launched through electromagnetic catapults that had been built in secret over 3 years. These were not the primitive spacecraft the aliens had expected. These ships incorporated the best of human engineering, combined with advanced alien technology. They were faster, more maneuverable, and more heavily armed than anything in the alien fleet. Earth fleet deployed, Admiral Park announced, beginning final assault on remaining enemy vessels. The Earth ships moved through the crippled alien fleet like sharks through a school of fish. Their weapons had been designed specifically to counter alien defenses. Their armor had been built to resist alien weapons. Eru, Final transmission, Captain Nam Ji-won commanded the pursuit squadron as the last few alien ships attempted to flee the solar system. Her ship caught up with the retreating vessels at the edge of Pluto's orbit. "Alien vessels," she transmitted, "you are fleeing the scene of an unprovoked attack on our homeworld. This message is being recorded for transmission to your Galactic Council." One of the fleeing ships responded desperately, "Please, we surrender. We did not know. Your species was listed as primitive. How do you possess such technology?" Captain Nam's response was calm and cold. "Tell your council what happened here. Tell them that humanity is no longer hiding. Tell them that any species that approaches our system with hostile intent will face the same fate as Admiral Vextar's fleet." In 14 minutes, the largest invasion fleet in galactic history had been completely destroyed. Of 53,000 ships, fewer than 100 survived to carry news of the disaster back to the Galactic Council. Dr. Shinwoo Jin looked at the tactical display showing the aftermath of the battle. Burning alien wreckage drifted throughout the solar system. Earth's hidden weapons had performed flawlessly. "Prometheus protocol complete," he announced to the command center. "All hostile forces eliminated or retreating. Earth space is secure." President Lim Da-un nodded with satisfaction. "Send a message to every alien government monitoring our communications. Inform them that Earth is open to peaceful contact and trade. However, any species that approaches our system with hostile intent will be met with the same response as the hegemony fleet." The message that went out to the galaxy was simple and clear. Humanity was no longer hiding. The species that had seemed primitive and defenseless had revealed itself as the most technologically advanced civilization in known space. The 14-minute war was over. The galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Around the circular table, hundreds of alien representatives sat in stunned silence watching the tactical recordings play over and over again. The holographic display showed the same impossible scene. 53,000 warships destroyed in 14 minutes by a species that was supposed to be primitive. Council member. Kilnoth stared at the energy readings with 4 of his eyes while his other 2 reviewed casualty reports. "This is impossible," he whispered. "These humans were classified as level 2 primitives. They barely had spaceflight. The recording showed weapons that surpassed anything in the Galactic Empire's arsenal. Kinetic bombardment at 10% of light speed. Electromagnetic pulse weapons powered by stellar energy. Instant matter transmission across planetary distances. Technology that was decades ahead of the most advanced civilizations in known space." Zilmoth, the floating jellyfish creature, pulsed with confused colors. "How long have they been hiding this capability? Our intelligence network showed no sign of advanced technology." "That's just it," replied Morketh, a spider-like being from the Arachnid Collective. "They weren't hiding it. They built it all in 3 years after capturing one of our scout probes." The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. Species that had existed for thousands of years struggled to develop new technologies over centuries. These humans had reverse-engineered alien technology, improved it, and built a solar system-wide defense network in just 3 years. "Impossible," declared Vaktul, the representative from the warrior clans. "No species learns that quickly." The senior intelligence analyst, a being called Zorkith, activated another holographic display. "Our post-battle analysis shows that the humans did not just copy our technology. They improved it. Their quantum communication network is faster than ours. Their kinetic weapons are more powerful than ours. Their stealth technology is undetectable by our sensors." A new voice spoke from the chamber's entrance. "Perhaps that should tell you something about underestimating other species." Every alien head turned toward the speaker. Dr. Park Tae-ho walked into the chamber wearing a simple black suit. Behind him came President Lim Da-un, General Ko Jin-suk, and Admiral Yang So-ra. They were the first humans ever to set foot in the Galactic Council chamber. "How did you get aboard this station?" demanded Council Security Chief Nalgorth. "The same way we got everything else done," Dr. Park replied calmly. "Quantum transmission. Your shields are designed to stop physical objects and energy weapons. They don't stop quantum entanglement." President Lim stepped forward. "Honorable council members, I am President Lim Da-un of Earth. We come not as conquerors, but as equals seeking peaceful relations with all civilized species." The word equals sent shockwaves through the chamber. In galactic politics, there were advanced species and primitive species. There were conquerors and conquered. There were no equals. Council Chairman Velthor, an ancient being whose species had dominated galactic politics for millennia, spoke carefully. President Lim, your species has demonstrated impressive capabilities. However, attacking a galactic empire fleet is an act of war against the entire council. General Ko stepped forward. With respect, Chairman, Admiral Vextar fired on our planet first. We merely defended ourselves. Your own battle recordings will confirm this. Furthermore, added Admiral Yang, your empire has a long history of attacking species you consider primitive. Perhaps it's time to reconsider that policy. Dr. Park activated a holographic display that showed detailed schematics of alien technology. We know everything about your weapons, your ships, and your military capabilities. We've been monitoring your communications for 3 years. We know which species you're planning to attack next. The alien stared at the display in shock. The schematics showed intimate knowledge of their most secret military projects. These humans had been watching them as carefully as they had been watching Earth. What do you want? Asked Council Member Kilnoth. President Lim smiled. Peace, trade, mutual cooperation between species. Earth is willing to share some of our technological advances in exchange for peaceful relations and an end to your expansion wars. You would share your technology? Asked Zilmoth, pulsing with surprised colors. Selected technologies, Admiral Yang clarified. Medical advances, environmental restoration techniques, peaceful applications of quantum physics. We're not interested in arming potential enemies, Dr. Park added, but we are interested in learning from other species, your agricultural techniques, your artistic traditions, your scientific methods. There's much we can learn from each other. The offer was unprecedented in galactic politics. Advanced species never shared technology with less advanced ones. They conquered them, enslaved them, or ignored them entirely. Chairman Velthor leaned forward. And if we refuse your offer? General Ko's response was polite but firm. Then you'll find Earth to be a very difficult neighbor. We've established defense perimeters extending 50 light-years from our solar system. Any hostile fleet entering that space will be met with the same response as Admiral Vextar's forces. 50 light-years? Gasped Morketh. That covers hundreds of star systems. Yes, Dr. Park confirmed. We've been busy. Quantum transmission makes rapid expansion very efficient. We now have monitoring stations and defensive platforms throughout the local galactic region. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. In 3 years, these humans had not only built an unbeatable defense system, but had expanded their influence across a huge section of space. They had become a major galactic power without anyone noticing. Over the following hours, representatives from dozens of species approached the human delegation. The Peaceful Trader Coalition immediately requested technology-sharing agreements. The agricultural worlds wanted environmental restoration techniques. Even the proud warrior clans asked about defensive technologies. Dr. Park found himself in discussion with Kolthar, the chief scientist of the Advanced Research Collective. Your quantum transmission technology, Kolthar said. It should be impossible to scale it up to planetary distances. It was impossible, Dr. Park agreed. Until we figured out how to stabilize the quantum field using gravitational resonance. Your probe data helped, but we had to develop entirely new mathematical models. New mathematics? Kolthar was fascinated. We would be honored to learn from your scientists. Similar conversations were happening throughout the chamber. Species that had considered themselves the pinnacle of galactic civilization were discovering that these newcomers had surpassed them in multiple fields of science and technology. President Lim addressed the full council one final time. Earth extends an invitation to all peaceful species. Our planet is open to trade, cultural exchange, and scientific cooperation. However, we will not tolerate any attempts at conquest or coercion. And if more species attempt what Admiral Vextar tried? Asked Chairman Velthor. Admiral Yang's response was calm but unmistakable. Then they will discover why the 14-minute war is already being studied in military academies across the galaxy as an example of what happens when you underestimate your opponent. Dr. Park activated a final holographic display showing Earth's current military capabilities. The numbers were staggering. In the months since the battle, humanity had expanded their defense network even further. They now possessed the largest and most advanced military force in known space. We prefer peace, President Lim said simply. But we are prepared for war. The choice belongs to each species individually. As the human delegation prepared to leave, they transmitted detailed star charts to the Council. The chart showed every human military installation, monitoring station, and defensive platform within 50 light-years of Earth. The message was clear. This was the new reality of galactic politics. 6 months later, Earth had established peaceful relations with over 300 alien species. Trade agreements brought new technologies and cultural exchanges to humanity. Scientific cooperation led to advances that benefited everyone. But the galaxy's military balance had changed forever. The Galactic Empire's expansion wars ended abruptly when species after species pointed to Earth's example and demanded protection. Aggressive civilizations found themselves facing unified resistance for the first time in galactic history. Dr. Park stood in his laboratory, now expanded into a massive research facility, where human and alien scientists worked together. On his desk was a message from the Galactic Council formally recognizing Earth as a major galactic power with full voting rights and territorial sovereignty. President Lim had framed her favorite quote. From the aftermath of the battle, it came from a message sent by the Peaceful Trader Coalition. For the first time in galactic history, strength is being used to protect the weak rather than exploit them. General Ko reviewed reports from Earth's expanding defense network. 50 star systems now hosted human monitoring stations. 100 worlds had requested defensive alliances. The galaxy was becoming a safer place for smaller civilizations. Admiral Yang commanded a fleet that had grown to over 10,000 ships, all built using the hybrid human-alien technology that had proven so effective. But most of her ships were involved in peaceful missions, exploration, scientific research, and disaster relief.